Ujú. Vamos, 1:33. Bueno, muy buenos días nuevamente. Vamos a dar inicio
Very well.
a
We are going
nuestro
to start
webinar sobre
our
el
webinar
avance de la
now.
cosecha
We're going to be
2024
talking
en las
about a
clases de
crop
trigo Harvard
update for
Winter y Summer
2024,
Winter de los
especially
Estados Unidos.
for SRW
Queremos
and
primero
HRW.
agradecer a todos nuestros
First of all,
clientes en
of course, we would
Sudamérica
like to thank
por su
everyone in
participación e
South
interés en
America
este
for
seminario
participating, for
y
connecting to
también a
our
todo el equipo
webinar.
de la US Wheat
And I would
Santiago por su
also
permanente
want to thank
apoyo
everyone
y
in
por haber hecho
Santiago. Thank
realidad
you all so
esta
much for your
actividad.
support and for making this
Adicionalmente, queremos
activity a
agradecer
reality.
a los
I
presentadores
would
que ya los
also
voy a
like to thank
introducir, como
our
también
speakers today.
a
I will be
las
introducing them
personas
in
que
a
nos van a
minute,
ayudar el día
and
de
we'll
hoy
also
en la
have
traducción
more
al
people
idioma
here in
español y
coordination
portugués.
and translation. So thank you all.
Haciendo una breve
And
introducción, estaba revisando las
just to
cifras de los
begin, I
Estados
wanted to
Unidos
say
del
that I was
último
looking at the
informe de
figures that we
UASDE
have in the
y
US
vemos
according
que los
to the
Estados
last
Unidos se
report, and
espera
we
que
see that in
produzca
the US we
5,4
expect
millones de
the
toneladas
production to be
más esta
5.4
temporada, la
billion
temporada
tons more than the
2024-2025,
previous
comparado con la
season. I
temporada
mean, we're comparing with
2023-2024.
2023,
Claro, en
2024.
el caso de las clases de
So
trigo que vamos a presentar hoy
for
día,
the
las
types that we're
clases de
going
trigo que vamos a
to
presentar hoy día
show you
representan
today,
más del 50% de la producción total
they
de
represent more
trigo de
than
los Estados
50% of the
Unidos.
total production in the
Haciendo una breve
US.
recapitulación,
So just to
vimos
recap,
que
I
la
mean,
temporada
we have
pasada
seen
se
that in the
produjo
previous season, we
16,4
had
millones de toneladas de Harvard
16.4
Winter
million tons
y
for
esta
hard red
temporada
winter. And this
24-25 el
season,
Departamento de Agricultura de los Estados Unidos
2024-2025, according to the
proyecta una
USDA,
producción de
it is
20,8
projected that it's
millones
going
de
to be
toneladas.
20.8.
Podemos
So
hablar de casi
we
5
could be
millones de
talking
toneladas
about
más.
5
En el caso
million
del soft red winter,
extra
la
tons.
situación es
In the
diferente.
case of
La producción
SRW,
de la
soft red
temporada
winter, it is
pasada,
a
es
bit
decir,
different. I
la
mean, in the
temporada
previous
2023
season,
y
2023
2024,
2024,
se produjo
we
12,2
had a
millones de
production of
toneladas
twelve
en soft red
million
winter
tons for
y en la
SRW.
temporada actual se
And
espera
in
una
the current
producción
season, we're
cercana a los
expecting a production that is
9,4
going to be
millones de
around
toneladas.
9.4.
Se espera que la
So
exportación de trigo soft red
we're
winter
expecting the export of
caiga en
SRW
aproximadamente
to go down
1,4 millones
approximately
de toneladas
1.4 million
desde
tons, and
4,4 millones
it's
exportados
coming
la
down
temporada
from
anterior
more than
a
4
3
that were
millones de
exported in the
toneladas
previous
proyectadas
season, going
estimadas para la
to
temporada
3 now exported in
2024-2025.
2024, 2025. These are the
Queríamos
figures that we
comentarles
have. So
que
I just wanted to say
todas
that
las preguntas las pueden hacer a través del
if
chat
you have
y
any
serán
questions, any
respondidas al
comments,
final
you
de la
can put them
sesión,
on the chat
tanto las
here on
preguntas
Zoom,
referentes a
and we're
Hard
going
Red
to have a
Winter
Q&A
como a Soft Red
session. So
Winter,
if you have any
pero lo
questions
más
on hard
importante,
red
no
winter
se
or soft
olviden que
red
abajo en su
winter, let
pantalla
us know. And
pueden
also
escoger el
at the
idioma
bottom
en
of
el
your
cual
Zoom
quieren escuchar
screen,
la
you can
presentación.
choose the
Nuestros
language
presentadores
that
harán la
you
presentación en
prefer.
inglés.
So
Sin
we're going
embargo,
to have
tenemos canales
presentations in
en
English,
portugués
and we're
y
going to have
español para
translation
que ustedes
into
puedan escoger
Portuguese and
en la parte
Spanish.
inferior.
So
En
you
un
can simply
círculo
click on the
se escoge
button,
el idioma
the
abajo de la
interpretation
mayúscula.
button, and then
Sin
select your
más
preferred
preámbulos,
language. Well, without further
presentando
ado,
a
I am
nuestros
going to introduce
aflamantes expositores
our
del día de hoy
excellent
sobre
speakers
el Hard Red
today.
Winter. Nos va a hablar
So
el señor
on
Aaron Harris,
Red Winter, we're going to
vicepresidente de
have
investigación y
Mr. Harris,
operaciones
Aaron
de
Harris.
la
He is the
Comisión de
VP
Trigo
of
de
Investigation and
Kansas.
Operations
Y
from the
posterior a su
Kansas
presentación,
Wheat Commission.
la
And
señora
we're
Erika
also
Oakley,
going to have
vicepresidente de
Ms. Oakley,
programas
Erica
USDA
Oakley. She is the
Associate,
VP
nos
of
dará el informe
programs of
preliminar
US
de la
Wheat
cosecha de
Associates, and
trigo
she's going to
Summer
be
Winter.
telling us more about
Sin más
SRW.
preámbulos, los quiero dejar
So now finally,
ahora
without further
con
ado,
el
I am
señor Aaron
going to
Harris.
turn it
Muchas
over
gracias,
to
Aaron.
Mr.
Por favor,
Harris. Thank you, Aaron. You have the floor.
Gracias, Miguel. Buenos dias and bom dia. I'm happy to be speaking with all of you today. I've had the pleasure of visiting most of your beautiful countries and look forward to coming back. I'm happy to share some good news with you this morning about the hard red winter wheat crop. If to friends who may be in Rio Grande do Sul in Brazil, I hope it stopped raining there finally. I'm sorry for the tragedy that you had with all the flooding. I was there in February, and it's a beautiful country. So with that, we will share my slides here. And Miguel, if you can give me a thumbs up if you see them. Okay, we will get into this. So for my program, what I plan on doing this morning is talking a little bit about how wheat gets from the farm to our customers in South America. Then I will give you a preview of the hard red winter wheat crop that is coming your way and take a look at the quality that we have so far. Greetings from Kansas. I am coming to you from Manhattan, Kansas, in the center of the United States, from the Kansas Wheat Innovation Center. And of course, there are a lot of farmers in the US dedicated to getting you the wheat that you need. There are 17 state wheat commissions that are members of US Wheat Associates, including the ones in the Central Great Plains that are growing the hard red winter wheat. And our farmers invest through wheat checkoffs to the universities, and we're constantly trying to get better quality product in your hands. We do very good quality analysis as the crop comes in. And of course, we have our friends in US Wheat Associates doing an excellent job providing you with technical service and marketing and assistance. It's an amazing story to me of how US wheat gets from the farm to the export. It starts at the farm level. Farmers have a number of wheat varieties that they can choose from to plant that are high yielding and high quality wheat varieties. And then when they harvest the wheat, they really have two options. They can deliver the wheat to the local country elevator, which is a large majority of what farmers do, or they can store that wheat on farm. Only very little of the wheat is stored on farm here in Kansas. Most of it is in commercial storage, but there is more on farm storage the further north. That wheat ultimately is railed in 10,000 metric tons by 100 or 110 car trains down to Gulf exports, and it's graded and loaded to meet your specifications. Wheat moves from the interior of the United States to export in three ways. The majority of that is done by railroad, unit trains mostly, the larger unit trains, shuttle trains of 110 cars. About 30% of the wheat can move by river barge. We've been blessed with a very good river system here in the United States. Some of that will go down to the Mississippi River, and then wheat off the Pacific Northwest obviously goes through the Columbia River, but less than 2% of our wheat is moved by truck. But it takes a good logistics system and coordination to make all this happen. We use the example of a Handymax vessel of 40,000 ton capacity. To fill that ship requires wheat from approximately 20,000 hectares. It takes farmers in their trucks 1,300 trips to take that wheat to the country elevator. That wheat is then sent to one or more train loading facilities, loaded into rail cars. It had to be 4 shuttle trains to hold that 40,000 tons of wheat. And it has to travel up to 2,000 kilometers. And those trains have to arrive at the same time at the export elevator to unload and be loaded for export, weighed, inspected, and loaded into the ship at approximately 1,500 tons per hour. So it is quite the impressive process. So in summary, we work very hard to get our best wheat varieties to plant and harvest at the farm level. Then we rely on our friends with US Wheat Associates to help market that wheat overseas and provide that technical service. We have a very efficient transportation and handling system. But what is really important is you, the buyer, are contracting for the wheat that you want and need. We want to make sure that you get the product that you are looking for. With that, let's start taking a look at the 2024 hard red winter wheat crop here in the United States. Samples are collected beginning with the harvest starts in Texas in May, and sampling continues all the way through the hard red winter wheat harvest. Just a reminder that collection and management of samples is handled by the organization Plains Grains Incorporated, and the website here is plainsgrains.org. They will be posting harvest information on that website, as well, of course, as US Wheat's website, where they will have harvest reports and quality reports available as the harvest is moved along. Testing for the harvest samples is performed at the U.S. Department of Agriculture Wheat Quality Lab located in Manhattan, Kansas. This is a unique year in that winter wheat acres, planted acres in the United States have decreased, but our production has increased over last year. So fewer acres, but higher production. And the reason for that is the severe drought in the plains has ended, and we have resumed more normal production. The wheat crop in Kansas, for example, is over 50% larger than it was a year ago. Winter wheat yields, you can see the trend. This chart goes all the way back to 1995, but due to good wheat genetics and good management by our farmers, our yields continue to increase. Of course, we had a dip in the line with the severe drought that we've been in the past couple of years, but we have resumed normal production. This is production estimate in bushels, and you can see 2024 production is projected to be higher than last year. This map, and this is incorrect, it's a 2024 map, illustrates the change in planted acres. So everything you see here in red or pink, each one of those states had a decrease in planted acres. So hard red winter wheat country here in the central United States and soft red winter wheat country, acreage was lower. But again, even though the acres were down in the central Great Plains of the United States, production did increase. A unique feature about this crop, the hard red winter wheat crop specifically, it's very early, and the soft red winter wheat crop. This chart shows progress of the crop, how much has been harvested. And you can see the red line is this harvest year. It's to the left of all the previous years. Harvest in Texas through Kansas through soft red winter wheat country was 7 to 10 days earlier than normal. So that is attributed to some drier weather that we had in early spring, but we also had some rainfall that came towards the end of the maturing crop, which really helped boost those yield numbers. At the same time, the drought stress early on in the spring provided us with the protein that we need in the crop. So here are the latest harvest numbers. This is as of July 14th. I've highlighted a few states. Colorado is almost 76% done with their harvest. That compares to 39% for the average. So again, way ahead of schedule. In Kansas, we're essentially done with our harvest. We were ahead of schedule. Nebraska is in the heart of their harvest right now. They're ahead of schedule. Harvest in Oklahoma and Texas is done. And hard red winter wheat harvest in South Dakota is just starting, and they're running closer to average in terms of the time schedule. This chart illustrates overall, kind of combines all these into acreage, yield, and production. And it just illustrates again what we've been talking about. And this is all winter wheat. So this is hard and soft winter wheat. Acres were down significantly from the previous year. Harvested acres are higher though. And that is also part of the key. Even though there were more planted acres in 2020, 2023, a lot of those acres were never harvested because of the drought conditions. This year, we have an increase in harvested percentage of acres. Yields have also increased year over year, and that's resulted in a higher production. So here are a few key states that you can see at the bottom of the chart. Again, Kansas, our planted acres were down. Our harvested acres were up significantly, though. In 2023, we did not harvest 30% of the wheat acres in Kansas due to drought, and that is very significant. That's about as bad as it gets. So this year was much better in terms of harvested acres. Our yields are higher and our production is higher. So we're very blessed here in the central United States, and farmers are in much better moods than they were a year ago because this has been a much better wheat harvest. I think you all are familiar with this map. This shows from U.S. Wheat Associates the different growing regions. So we're here in the central United States into Montana. That is kind of the hard red winter wheat growing region. And harvest right now is happening in Colorado, Nebraska, South Dakota. They are also harvesting now in Wyoming. And this shows the general flow of those growing regions and the exports from those regions. Most of the wheat here in Central Plains is going to the center Gulf or to the Gulf for export. Soft red winter wheat, going down to the center Gulf. In the Northern Plains, it either goes through the Great Lakes or the PNW. So let's take a look at the quality so far, the data that we have so far on the hard red wheat crop. Again, these tests are done with the U.S. Department of Agriculture Wheat Quality Laboratory, which is here in Manhattan. They have really a couple of purposes at that lab. They, of course, mill, test, and bake the samples from the current harvest, but they also evaluate experimental new wheat varieties from wheat breeders from all around the country. So wheat breeders will send a sample of a potential variety to this lab to be evaluated for its quality performance. Jumping into wheat data and grade factors, this is a very average crop, which is a good thing. Right now, our average protein on a 12% moisture basis is looking to be around 12%, which is where we like it to be. It's down slightly from last year, but last year the drought stress crop was a little bit higher in protein. But we've seen good test weights, good kernel size. Most of this crop is grading as a US #1. Test rates are running really good, and it's a very clean crop. And this is, again, about 85% of the hard red winter wheat crop has been harvested. The samples protein in regards to protein are divided into 3 categories: low protein, medium protein, and high protein. So low protein represents samples less than 11.5% protein, medium between 11.5 and 12.5% protein, and higher protein is 12.5%. So this is a little bit of kernel data for you. Again, this is looking like it's going to be a very good milling crop. This is the distribution amongst all the samples that have been collected so far. So you can see the test weights are running right where we want them to be, 1,000 kernel weights. Protein, again, if you average this all out, we're being at around 12% so far through the 300 some samples that are collected. And the kernel diameter also very good. This is a distribution chart. So of the samples, this shows how those samples are distributed. So the number of samples that are at a specific test weight. So you can see there, a lot of those samples are in the range we would like it to be in terms of test weight. Again, protein, we like to see the higher numbers here, between 12 and 13% protein. That shows that most of the representative samples are in that 12% protein range. This is the grade distribution chart, and this breaks it down by the protein categories that I mentioned. So most of this is a US #1. And it looks like in that high protein category, about 20% of those samples are the high protein, 24% are the medium protein, and 24% are low protein. So it's a good quality U.S. hard #1 with the protein that you love. These are maps provided by Plains Grains Incorporated. The color coding on the right, this is test weight in kilograms per hectoliter. So the test weights, what you're looking for is these numbers that are in the green or yellow or orange or red. And that's where the higher test weights are. Test weights in central and Kansas are a little bit lower, but still in range. And keep in mind where you see this blue color in Northeast Kansas, that's not very much wheat that's grown. That's just a very small number of samples. This is mostly corn and soybean country. Here's the same map for kernel diameter. And again, all this data will be available to you later through either Plains Grains or U.S. Wheat Associates. There's the 1,000 kernel weight map. And finally, the protein map. So this gives you an idea of where that protein is being sourced from when you order that, when you purchase that wheat. A lot of protein is where you would expect it to be, towards the western part of the High Plains, central and western Kansas, eastern Colorado, western Oklahoma, West Texas. That's where it's a drier, hotter climate, and we push proteins up pretty high. And what's significant is that we have some very high yields associated with the higher protein. Typically, that is an inverse relationship. If you have higher yields, we have lower protein, but that's not necessarily the case this year. We're seeing some good yields and some good proteins, which hopefully makes everybody happy. So in summary, for the 2024 hard red winter wheat crop in terms of conditions, there was excellent yields and kernel quality, very good kernel characteristics, should be good for you millers, should favor high flour extraction, high yields, bushels per acre with slightly below average protein across the region, but still we can get you the protein you need. The crop production is very similar to the 2019 crop, but we have better protein and quality than that year. So western Kansas, Colorado, and western Nebraska were stressed by the drought a little bit more. So that's, again, where the higher protein was and maybe fewer bushels. But overall, we had very good harvest conditions, good yields. And the early testing data that we've shown you so far really shows a good, sound, and functional crop. And what's even more favorable is price and availability look to be very good for you this year. We do have the bushels this year. We haven't been able to say that for the past couple of years because of the drought. So we have lots of bushels of a good quality crop. I can tell you from the domestic miller perspective here in the United States, they have been very pleased so far with the quality of the hard red winter wheat crop, and I hope you will be too. South Dakota is going to have an excellent harvest. This is going to be one of their best crops in South Dakota. They grow hard red winter wheat and spring wheat, and it's looking like they're going to have a very big hard red winter wheat crop in South Dakota. And as I mentioned, I'm very happy to say that U.S. wheat is very competitive in the world right now. This is a chart that was provided to me by U.S. Wheat Associates. These are FOB prices as of July 15th, so very current prices. And you can see that U.S. Gulf hard red winter wheat at 11.5% proteins and U.S. Gulf soft red winter wheat very competitive right now. And we see that in the commercial sales data that we have been seeing. This is just another graph showing comparison to other origins. U.S. hard red winter wheat is this pink line here. So again, much more competitive in that export space, and we're very happy about that. And we're very happy for you. You all are very good customers for us in South America. The countries in this region have been in the top 20 markets for U.S. wheat for the past 5 years. I've highlighted some of those there. And we really look forward to that continuing. This is going to be a good export year for hard red winter wheat, and I think you're going to find some very good opportunities available to you. Miguel and the whole team at U.S. Wheat Associates, I know they're working hard to get you all of this data and get you the product that you want. So just a final slide here, just to remind you that all the data in this presentation was collected, tested, and analyzed by Plains Grains Incorporated. They're in charge of the crop quality survey. That's an organization that is funded by farmers also, from the Wheat Checkoff in Texas, Oklahoma, all these states you see here. We collaborate with USDA's Winter Wheat Quality Laboratory here in Manhattan. And as more detailed information comes out through the harvest, you can go to plainsgrains.org to check that data out. And of course, U.S. Wheat Associates also has plenty of resources to you. So thank you so much for your time, Miguel. Thanks for inviting me this morning. I'm glad to share with everybody. And I think we'll probably take some questions here later on.
Muchas gracias, Aaron.
Thank you very much, Aaron. That was great. Great information. Very good news. And as we were saying, we're going to have a Q&A session at the end of this webinar. Just wanted to recap, just wanted to highlight a couple things that I find very interesting. Even though we had fewer acres planted this season, 2024, 2025, we see that we had more harvest, which is great. In 2023, 2024, it's also important to say that around 30% of the surface was not harvested for hard red winter because of the drought, because of the conditions. And we see how important the climate conditions are in terms of developing wheat in the U.S. So great news, Aaron. Thank you so much. U.S. grade number 1, very clean. 71% of the harvest is expected to have more than 11.5% of protein. So that's also very good news for our clients in the region. We have very good test weight as well, and we know that's also going to be good for milling. And something that I wanted to mention as well, of course, since I worked in baking, it's important also to have good tolerance to fermentation in terms of when we include these flours in baking. So 70% of the wheat in South America is usually used for that. So we know that's important. Well, we're going to have a Q&A session later. I'm going to turn it over to Erica Oakley now, and she's going to be telling us more about quality and a crop update for soft red winter. Erica, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Miguel, and thank you, everyone, and appreciate you allow me to present on soft red winter today. As Miguel said, my name is Erica Oakley, and I am the Vice President of Programs at U.S. Wheat Associates, and I am located in our headquarters office just outside of Washington, D.C., so it's quite hot and steamy here. I know it's cold down there in South America for you guys, so I am going to go ahead and get started. All right. And if you can just let me know if you see that, Miguel. Excellent.
Estamos okay, Erika.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll just go ahead and get started. So my presentation is short, but it does include quite a lot of information. We're going to talk about where soft red winter is grown and exported, as well as the planting and production numbers for this year, how the crop is progressing, get some of the early sample testing data, and finally talk about supply and demand, and then some of those advantages and applications for soft red winter. So as you know, these U.S. wheat are of the wheat classes grown in the US, these are the six classes, and they all have their own unique characteristics and end product uses, especially when you use them in blends. But Aaron did a great job of talking about hard red winter, and so I'm now going to shift focus and talk about soft red winter. Soft red winter wheat is grown predominantly on the eastern side of the United States, from the south, where you have Louisiana, Alabama, all the way up to Michigan and Wisconsin, and then over to the East Coast. It's also increasingly being grown as far west as the eastern portions of Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas. And each year, US Wheat, we publish a crop quality report, and that includes sample data from the 11 states shaded here. The soft red winter data is divided into two main export regions. We have the East Coast and then the Gulf. Most of the soft red winter does flow down the Mississippi into this area of the Gulf. And then a smaller portion is exported out of the East Coast, which are those lighter brown states. Approximately 72% of the total soft red winter production is represented in the annual crop quality report. So it is a good baseline for seeing how the crop is performing differently year to year. So looking at how this year's crop compares to last year, in the fall of 2022, farmers were responding to those high prices caused by the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and they planted 12% more soft red winter acres than the previous year. They planted 3.2 million hectares. Those high prices didn't last, and so as they were thinking about what they were going to plant for this year, when they went back to the field, they responded to those lower prices, but then also the input prices were still high, and that resulted in tighter profit margins for farmers. And so they did plant fewer acres than the previous year. They planted 2.5 million hectares compared to 3.2 the previous year. And then looking at production, not only was there a sharp increase in planting acres for last year's crop, but you also had excellent growing conditions and harvest, which led to the highest production in 9 years. It was also the highest yield on record. So when you're looking at how the production is for this year so far, conditions have also been really good, and yields are better than expected. But remember, we did have a 20% reduction in planted acres, so production is also going to be down. As of earlier this month, USDA estimates 9.3 million metric tons will be harvested of soft red winter this year. So how is this year's crop progressing? It's progressing quite quickly, similar to what Aaron said about soft red winter. This chart, you can see the brown trend line the brown line for this year. Harvest has really picked up speed starting around mid to late June. It started just kind of pulling away from the previous year and 5-year average. It is around that time that a lot of the growing region was experiencing hot, dry conditions, and so that just led to faster crop maturity. Harvest is winding down, and as of Monday, a couple of days ago, USDA estimates the soft red winter crop is about 98% harvested, and so it looks like we're going to be harvested about 3 weeks. The whole crop will be harvested about 3 weeks faster than average. And similar, like last year, the conditions for this year have also been excellent. Again, for this, looking at the brown line for this year, you can see that it's just been consistently highly rated. This is the percentage of good to excellent as from the USDA. And I will note that there have been some isolated concerns about vomitoxin due to rain events during flowering, but those are isolated. And so for those that when you're purchasing, it's always important to include Dawn specs when purchasing soft red winter. But overall, as you can see, while those weather events have created some isolated issues, this soft red winter crop looks to be fantastic with strong yields and good quality. So speaking of quality, we'll take a quick look at that early sample testing data. This was from last week's harvest report. Overall, the quality looks pretty similar to the 5-year average, and it is currently grading a US number 2, but that is because of that slightly lower test weight. And this distribution chart, and I have quite a few distribution charts to show, and these are straight average data from 233 samples tested for this year so far. And so you can see from this chart that 34% of the samples are a US number 1 and 45% are US number 2. So overall, 79% of the samples for this year are grading number 2 or higher, and that's indicative of sound wheat and a uniform crop. The overall average currently is 77.81 kilograms per hectoliter. And again, of looking at those same 233 samples, 89% of those do have a protein content of between 8 and 10% on a 12% moisture basis. And that's typical for soft red winter. And again, it just demonstrates this is a consistent crop. And the straight average currently is 9.6% protein. And this is the distribution chart for 1,000 kernel weight. 69% of the samples have a 1,000 kernel weight of between 30 and 35.9 grams. And so again, it's a good solid crop for this year. And then finally on the sample data, 78% of the samples have a falling number of 300 seconds or higher. And that indicates there's very little sprout damage this year. And currently the straight average is 316 seconds, which is pretty close to average. The lab is currently conducting composite testing, so we hope to have the mill, flour, dough, and end product results in the coming weeks. We'll switch now to the supply and demand. So as you can see, this is more than half of soft red winter is used in the domestic market. And you can see from this chart, soft red winter exports are down about 19% from last year, but they are still 6% ahead of the 5-year average. And a couple of reasons why this is probably the case is that we had really good year last year with high production, and soft red winter was a competitively priced class. And so there were just higher exports. There is a lot of good carryover stock, so we have excellent availability for this year. This is looking at the commercial sales data as of July 12th, and these are the top, I think about 16 markets for soft red winter in 2023-2024 marketing year compared to this year. And there are several that are on this call today that are included in this: Peru, Ecuador, Brazil, Colombia, and Chile. So we greatly appreciate your continued business. And this chart, Aaron already showed it, but again, it just shows that prices are pretty competitive overall, and they have been on a downward trend since May. So it's very competitively priced right now. And to kind of close it out, these are a snapshot of the advantages of soft red winter for blending. It's great to use soft red winter flour as a blend, as it provides opportunities to create an optimal flour type for any number of end product uses. Some markets have found success blending soft red winter with hard red winter and hard red spring to improve crumb texture and even loaf volume of pan bread. And you can do that with dough development and mixing properties. So it's a great blending opportunity. Also it's a low to medium protein wheat, and so it's an ideal for the use of production of different types of flour, especially cake, pastry, and self-rising. It typically has a lower flour moisture content, and so that really provides an advantage for the baker. And also it has a finer particle size, and that can help increase the rate of absorption. And it produces a more viscous flour, and that's for better aeration during mixing and a softer mouthfeel for cakes. And then finally, it provides a good flour for specialty products such as biscuits, crackers, and snack foods. And some of those products that it can be used for, this is just a snapshot of the various applications that you can use soft red winter either as a straight flour or in blending opportunities. And lastly, I know that the Santiago office shares Trigo Noticias each week, and that includes these reports. But if you would like to sign up directly, you can also get these in English at the uswheat.org website. So with that, I thank you for your time, and happy to take any questions.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Erica.
Muchísimas gracias por la excelente
Thank you for the excellent presentation.
Primero, comentar que todos
I just wanted to say that all of the participants in this seminar, they know that soft red winter is a unique category with unique characteristics, very good performance for, different applications, for different uses. So we know it's the best category for snacks, for cakes, for biscuits, for other applications. Really, we have no other competitor that has such a unique category. So we have seen that it works very well as well for blends, for flour mixes. And we've seen that in different markets in South America the past few years. And soft red winter has also been used or considered to be used in certain flours or to reduce blending time, mix time, as Erica was saying. In terms of quality, we know that it is similar to the average that we had in the past few years.